and the colored bottles in the druggist's window. A taxicab was to be kept waiting at headquarters at the same time with 3 other good men ready to start for a given address the moment the alarm was given over the telephone. We found Gennaro awaiting us with the greatest anxiety at the Opera House. The bomb at Cesaire's had been the last straw. Gennaro had already drawn from his bank 10 crisp $1,000 bills, and already he had a copy of Il Progresso in which he had hidden the money between the sheets. "Mr. Kennedy," he said, "I am going to meet them tonight. They may kill me. See, I have provided myself with a pistol. I shall fight, too, if necessary, for my little Adelina. But if it is only money they want, they shall have it." "One thing I want to say," began Kennedy. "No, no, no," cried the tenor. "I will go. You shall not stop me." "I do not wish to stop you," Craig reassured him. "But one thing. Do exactly as I tell you, and I swear not a hair of the child's head will be injured, and we will get the blackmailers, too." "How?" eagerly asked Gennaro. "What do you want me to do?" "All I want you to do is to go to Albano's at the appointed time. Sit down in the back room. Get into conversation with them, and above all, signor, as soon as you get the copy of the Bollettino, turn to the 3rd page. Pretend not to be able to read the address. Ask the man to read it. Then repeat it after him. Pretend to be overjoyed. Offer to set up wine for the whole crowd. Just a few minutes, that is all I ask, and I will guarantee that you will be the happiest man in New York tomorrow." Gennaro's eyes filled with tears as he grasped Kennedy's hand. "That is better than having the whole police force back of me," he said. "I shall never forget, never forget." As we went out, Kennedy remarked, "You can't blame them for keeping their troubles to themselves. Here we send a police officer over to Italy to look up the records of some of the worst suspects. He loses his life. Another takes his place. Then, after he gets back, he is set to work on the mere clerical routine of translating them. One of his associates is reduced in rank. And so what does it all come to? Hundreds of records have become useless because the 3 years within which the criminals could be deported have elapsed with nothing done. Intelligent, isn't it? I believe it has been established that all but about 50 of 700 known Italian suspects are still at large, mostly in this city, and the rest of the Italian population is guarded from them by a squad of police in number scarcely 1/30th of the number of known criminals. No, it is our fault if the Black Hand thrives. We had been standing on the corner of Broadway, waiting for a car. "Now, Walter, don't forget. Meet me at the Bleecker Street station of the subway at 11:30. I'm off to the university. I have some very important experiments with phosphorescent salts that I want to finish today." "What has that got to do with the case?" I asked, mystified. "Nothing," replied Craig. "I didn't say it had. At 11:30, don't forget. By George, though, that Paoli must be a clever one. Think of his knowing about ricinus. I only heard of it myself recently. Well, here's my car. Goodbye." Craig swung aboard an Amsterdam Avenue car, leaving me to kill 8 nervous hours of my weekly day of rest from the Star. They passed at length, and at precisely the appointed time Kennedy and I met. With suppressed excitement, at least on my part, we walked over to Vincenzo's. At night this section of the city was indeed a black enigma. The lights in the shops where olive oil, fruit, and other things were sold were winking out one by one. Here and there strains of music floated out of wine shops, and little groups lingered on corners conversing in animated sentences. We passed Albano's on the other side of the street, being careful not to look at it too closely, for several men were hanging idly about, pickets apparently, with some secret code that would instantly have spread far and wide the news of any alarming action. At the corner we crossed and looked in Vincenzo's window a moment, casting a furtive glance across the street at the dark empty store where the police must be hiding. Then we went in and casually sauntered back of the partition. Luigi was there already. There were several customers still in the store, however, and therefore we had to sit in silence while Vincenzo quickly finished a prescription and waited on the last one. At last the doors were locked and the lights lowered, all except those in the windows which were to serve as signals. 10 minutes to 12, said Kennedy, placing the oblong box on the table. Gennaro will be going in soon. Let us try this machine now and see if it works. If the wires have been cut since we put them up this morning, Gennaro will have to take his chances alone. Kennedy reached over and with a light movement of his forefinger touched a switch. Instantly, a babble of voices filled the store, all talking at once, rapidly and loudly. Here and there we could distinguish a snatch of conversation, a word, a phrase, now and then even a whole sentence above the rest. There was the clink of glasses. I could hear the rattle of dice on a bare table, and an oath. A cork popped. Somebody scratched a match. We sat bewildered, looking at Kennedy. "Imagine that you are sitting at a table in Albano's back room," was all he said. "This is what you would be hearing. This is my electric ear, in other words the dictograph, used, I am told, by the Secret Service of the United States. Wait, in a moment you will hear Gennaro come in. Luigi and Vincenzo, translate what you hear. My knowledge of Italian is pretty rusty." "Can they hear us?" whispered Luigi in an awestruck whisper. Craig laughed. "No, not yet. But I have only to touch this other switch, and I could provide an effect in that room that would rival the famous writing on Belshazzar's wall, only it would be a voice from the wall instead of writing." "They seem to be waiting for someone," said Vincenzo. "I heard somebody say he will be here in a few minutes. Now get out." The babble of voices seemed to calm down as men withdrew from the room. Only one or two were left. "One of them says the child is all right. She has been left in the back yard," translated Luigi. "What yard, did he say?" asked Kennedy. "No, they just speak of it as the yard. Jameson, go outside in the store to the telephone booth and call up headquarters. Ask them if the automobile is ready with the men in it." I rang up, and after a moment the police central answered that everything was right. "Then tell central to hold the line clear. We mustn't lose a moment. Jameson, you stay in the booth. Vincenzo, you pretend to be working around your window, but not in such a way as to attract attention, for they have men watching the street very carefully. What is it, Luigi?" "Gennaro is coming. I just heard one of them say, 'Here he comes.'" Even from the booth I could hear the dictograph repeating the conversation in the dingy little back room of Albano's down the street. "He's ordering a bottle of red wine," murmured Luigi, dancing up and down with excitement. Vincenzo was so nervous that he knocked a bottle down in the window, and I believe that my heartbeats were almost audible over the telephone which I was holding, for the police operator called me down for asking so many times if all was ready. "There it is, the signal," cried Craig. "A fine opera is I Pagliacci. Now listen for the answer." A moment elapsed, then, "Not without Gennaro," came a gruff voice in Italian from the dictograph. A silence ensued. It was tense. "Wait, wait," said a voice which I recognized instantly as Gennaro's. "I cannot read this. What is this, 23½ Prince Street?" "No, 33½. She has been left in the back yard." "Jameson," called Craig, "tell them to drive straight to 33½ Prince Street. They will find the girl in the back yard. Quick, before the Black Handers have a chance to go back on their word." I fairly shouted my orders to the police headquarters. "They're off," came back the answer, and I hung up the receiver. "What was that?" Craig was asking of Luigi. "I didn't catch it. What did they say?" "The other voice said to Gennaro, 'Sit down while I count this.'" "Shh! He's talking again." "If it is a penny less than 10,000, or if I find a mark on the bills, I'll call to Enrico, and your daughter will be spirited away again," translated Luigi. "Now Gennaro is talking," said Craig. "Good. He is gaining time. He's a trump. I can distinguish that all right. He's asking the gruff-voiced fellow if he will have another bottle of wine. He says he will. Good. They must be at Prince Street now. We'll give them a few minutes more. Not too much, for word will be back to Albano's like wildfire, and they will get Gennaro after all. Ah, they are drinking again. What was that, Luigi? The money is all right, he says? Now, Vincenzo, out with the lights." A door banged across the street, and 4 huge dark figures darted out in the direction of Albano's. With his finger, Kennedy pulled down the other switch and shouted, "Gennaro, this is Kennedy. To the street! Polizia! Polizia!" A scuffle and a cry of surprise followed. A second voice, apparently from the bar, shouted, "Out with the lights! Out with the lights!" Bang went a pistol, and another. The dictograph, which had been all sound a moment before, was as mute as a cigar box. "What's the matter?" I asked Kennedy as he rushed past me. "They have shot out the lights. My receiving instrument is destroyed. Come on, Jameson. Vincenzo, stay back if you don't want to appear in this." A short figure rushed by me, faster even than I could go. It was the faithful Luigi. In front